Beep, 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 beep. Welcome to the Court of the EDI Jester, a recovered jester who is feeling somewhat better than one has done over the last few days, lying in bed shivering and crying like a child. It's still there. Still there, you can tell by the puffy eyes and the general demeanour. Okay, so I thought we'd start something new today, so I'm going to do a couple today about New Zealand, and this is the first one. All right, New Zealand. Right, what's going on in New Zealand? We haven't heard from New Zealand for a bit, so I thought let's bring something on board. Please do subscribe, share, etc. Become a warrior teacher starting in March. Let's get going. You can see the advert in my pinned tweet or underneath in the doobries, where everything else, as usual, is of course for you. All right. So what we've got today is a great piece from Resist Gender Education, which starts us off with the headline: "Cut out the nonsense, Miss Stanford." Okay. Now, so essentially it's a briefing document that's been written by people to send to Minister Stanford in regards to education in New Zealand. So let's start. In December 2023, RGE, Resist Gender Education, sent the new Minister of Education a briefing document asking her to cut out the gender ideology nonsense from the Relationship and Sexuality Education Guide. That's the RSEG there, or RGE as it's known. Here are our recommendations for change. So this is an interesting example of what can be done when you're doing sending a letter to a particular politician or to somebody whom has the ability to change things. Unlike many groups and individuals who oppose the RSE Guide, Resist Gender Education supports much of it. We are, however, strongly opposed to the gender identity ideology content which is woven throughout. The government has declared its intent to remove and place the guide in the coalition agreement, which has drawn responses of delight from some and despairs from others. The 2020 revised RSE guidelines included new content and said it reflected the significant changes in the world since 2015, including the growing awareness of the concept of gender identity and the claiming of a trans identity by an increasing number of young people. Right, so they altered the original guidance to include the gender identity cobblers, because we need to do that because there is a growing awareness of the concept. So what? There is a growing awareness that cocaine makes you high. As a result, we've included instructions on how children can use cocaine. Utterly bonkers, right? It is this last point on gender identity ideology which Resist Gender Education finds contentious and wants removed from the sexuality education. Gender identity ideology is the belief that all people have an internal gender identity which is the determinant of which sex they are. This is back, isn't it, to the stuff we've discussed before. The slipping of the soul, the gendered soul by the gender gods, into the flesh sack of the human body, this Cartesian dualism reincarnated, yeah? In this belief system, gender identity is more important than sex, and boys who believe they are girls are free to use the girls' toilets, play in sports, in girls' teams, and so on. Right? It then says, some people believe gender identity is fixed, others that it is fluid. The RSE Guide says children must be believed if they say they are the other sex, because children know who they are. There is absolutely no evidence, responds RGE. There is absolutely no evidence for the existence of gender identity. It is purely a subjective feeling. That's because it's a parasite, isn't it? It's a mind parasite. Oh, Gad's sad with his parasitic mind? Oh, yes. It's a mind parasite. It goes from one person to another, particularly if you're female and young. Look it up. Right? RGE and others opposed to the guide do not want gender ideology being taught in schools. We are all opposed to children being taught beliefs as if they are fact, when there is no evidence or science to support them. Beliefs such as gender identity is something that all people have. Behaviour and personality determine a person's sex. For some people, their sex assigned at birth and their gender don't match, which means they are trans. Gender is more important than sex. Right? We are all opposed to children being taught untruths such as the following. Sex is a spectrum. Sex is assigned at birth. Humans have 3 sexes. Lesbian and gays are same gender attracted. Children are free to choose their sex. Well, who wouldn't be opposed to that? Oh, lots of people, including in large organisations and the government, the legal system, everywhere else. We are all opposed to the following practices in schools. The mandatory use of pronouns based on gender identity. That's the entry point. That's the password. Innit? If you use the pronouns, then you show that you're a member of the cult. It's a shibboleth. Right? It's the password of the shibboleth. Great word, shibboleth. Go look it up. Supporting children to start social transitioning and concealing it from their parents. Children who identify as trans being able to choose which toilets and changing rooms they use. If a child identifies as trans, it's a safeguarding issue. It's an immediate call to social services. RSE being embedded into all curriculum areas so that parents are unable to exercise their legal right to remove their children from relationship and sexuality education. That's an interesting one. So being embedded into all curriculum areas, that's back to what I've said before. Write a story for your English homework about Jane, who is non-binary, and Brian, who's an allosexual gusset fumbler, right? They hide it in everything else. So it goes, the infection spreads throughout the curriculum body. Yeah. To be clear here, RGE does not agree with those who oppose any form of sexuality education in schools, including discussion about sexual orientation. RGE strongly supports relationship and sexuality education in schools. We note that the mental health guidelines produced by the Ministry of Education to support teachers in mental health education are equally imbued with gender ideology, and all our comments in relation to gender ideology in the RSE guidelines apply equally to the mental health guidelines. That's interesting, isn't it? You see, so not only are they putting it in as one set of guidelines, they're putting in another set of guidelines because they want to get it in whatever happens. Just unreal. Unlike the very reasonable people at RGE, I'm brutal on this one. You get in there and you strip it out. You know, like a surgeon removing a cancer. You get in and you strip it out. Every single bit of it. RGE is a diverse group of concerned New Zealanders. We encompass experienced educators, parents and grandparents, including some from the rainbow community. We have both retired and currently employed teachers and public servants in our group, but those still employed must remain anonymous or put their jobs and their professional futures at risk, which is the phenomenon we've seen. The examples being, of course, Kathleen Stock, Joe Phoenix, James Essett. So we've seen this before. This is occurring again in New Zealand. This tells you, you see, it's not grassroots, it's top-down imposition. It's top-down imposition. Resist Gender Education has a great deal of information to support families who want to challenge the way their schools is teaching about relationships and sexuality. We also support schools and teachers by providing lesson plans that show how relationships and sexuality can be taught without teaching gender identity ideology. They've also got testimonials from parents. Here's one testimonial. My young son is being forced to change for swimming in a shared changing room with a male-identifying female child. My son is aware that the other child is female and is at an age where he feels self-conscious about nudity in front of members of the opposite sex. Many parents of other children are unaware that the child is female, and no one has been asked whether they consent to their son sharing the purported single-sex change room with a female child. No consideration is made for the cultural and religious requirements of other families or the privacy and consent rights of the boys. This imposition of the idea of a sexual curriculum, the PSHE, what called different things in different countries, comes directly from UNESCO's goals. Directly from UNESCO's goals. This is all about the social engineering that we're seeing taking place up the chain, when you go up the chain. So it's not a surprise to me, but it's very interesting to see the same problems arising in New Zealand, the same issues in New Zealand, the same grassroots movement pushback, which is fascinating that you're seeing there. Okay, it's a good article, go and have a read. More about New Zealand later today. Other than that, please do become a warrior teacher. All right, we need people to come on board, so I've got enough people to run a course. That's all I want, right? 5 of you. That'll do, right? And we can run it. So, yeah, please do apply and come and join us in the fight back. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.